Hey, it's the Road Show, post-Halloween show. I got to ask Alan, where in the hell are you? You got a car for a bed?
I'm just in my bedroom, just my normal place. What's unusual about it?
This is just us
any car, is
learning
it,
more
Alan?
about you.
Yeah, I never figured you was a Jeep guy, but you know.
No, I'm not. So I'm in Stuttgart at the moment, and I've come out for some meetings and catch up with some really interesting people. And I thought, you know what? I typed into Google hotels for car enthusiasts in Stuttgart, and this rocked up. So it's the V8 Motor World. It is amazing. I am coming back again and again in this hotel. We'll start with what's behind me. They do themed hotel rooms, and I was hoping for either a martini Porsche or maybe something a little bit sweet.
Oh my gosh!
But I
Wait,
got
so
the
tell
off-road
us what
thing,
was on the
so,
card for people that are only listening. What was on the
else?
card?
Oh, good point. So it's an old Alpha. So they basically chop the front end off cars and they stick them on at the foot of your bed. It's brilliant. It does have a sticker on that says "No walking on the bonnet." I'll be the judge of that later tonight. You flaming Lamborghinis.
You just need some diamond plate.
Right?
You'd be good. Yeah.
Does the theme extend to the rest of the room? So if you open up the minibar, are there a load of Bud Lights?
Oh, good question. Yeah, how much detailed are they in that?
Yeah,
So,
you want the martini room for sure, actually.
But the
Martini
rest of the
doesn't taste good,
hotel
does it?
is amazing. So
Yeah.
downstairs, there's a McLaren dealer. There's a classic car dealer, which is 2 floors in the building.
In the hotel.
In the hotel, and then over the road is Motor World Museum. So I'll be there when we click end here for a couple of hours.
Nice.
Next door is a Ferrari and Pagani dealer. Over the road is a Porsche dealer, and just down the road is the Porsche Museum. So that's where I'm up and out to in the morning. So yeah, it's an amazing place. It's really cool.
That sounds like car enthusiast heaven all around you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And even just when you drive here, so from Stuttgart Airport, the places you pass are phenomenal. In fact, I actually I actually had dinner with Mark Philippe Gambala, who did the Martian. So he and I had dinner for a couple of hours.
Nice.
What an amazing guy. And he's building an amazing product. He showed me the next few things they're working on. He was really open, so we'll get some of that onto the Instagram channel soon. So
Very cool.
So you got the scoop.
yeah, I'm living again another elated state of mind.
Yeah.
Is it confession time? I feel like I need to confess on this podcast. So a few years ago,
I'm nervous
I
right
may
now.
or may not have taken my mum on a lovely little vacation for a weekend to see the Christmas holidays and the Christmas markets in Stuttgart, not knowing that those markets weren't open till the week later and ending up in the Mercedes and the Porsche museums. So I
National
feel like I need to get
vacation
that
here.
off my chest. I'm sorry, Mum. I didn't know, but we had a great time.
Awesome.
That's like the
Awesome.
best. Like I had no idea.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Alan, I saw your car in a tunnel or something, right? Like, so you drove or you flew?
I drove, and
You did?
so
Okay.
there was
Yeah.
a couple of-
Well, that's the best
there was
part.
A couple of other
Yeah.
people that it was amazing, and when you get to the autobahns, then you realize why a lot of cars are designed the way they are. You are. I did some recording when I was on the autobahn, doing 140 miles an hour. It's everything is moving really quick. It's not super fast, I know, but it's different to cruising down, on the 405 or the M1 down, as you know. So,
That's
and
not
when you see
slouchy, for
headlights
sure.
coming up from behind you, it's no slouch. And when you see cars headlights behind you, you move over because they literally like blow past you as they go past.
Wait.
So
Alan moved over for someone on the Autobahn? I mean...
on the first few hours I did, yeah. And then I got into it and it was Sport Plus all the way.
Nice.
And I could see the fuel level, literally before my eyes. Decrease.
Yeah.
You can just hear
well,
it.
If you're new to the
sucking,
show,
yeah.
Alan's got a brand new 992. Is it an S Targa S? right?
Yeah, 4S. Yeah.
Yeah, 4S. Okay, so very competent vehicle, and just
But
made
it's
for
not
those
new
roads.
anymore. It's clicked over 5,000 miles already. How many miles have you got on your car?
It's funny you ask.
3,000. Yeah,
I
you're doing much better than I am.
And I'm almost at 11 in the GT4. I actually went out with some buddies this morning, posted it Instagram, a motley crew of Porsches. There was at least one McLaren, a couple BMW M2s. And we got up to the mountains. It was 28 degrees. And so I'm on Cup 2s. I basically had to turn around and come back down because I didn't want to die. But it was fun to get the car out. But yeah, I thought I was going to hit 11 today, and I couldn't even make that happen. So anyway.
Do you know, my daughter and her boyfriend have gone shopping for a new car, and they've literally just bought an old C63.
Really?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
We looked at several, and they go, oh, yeah, it looks a little bit secondhand. We saw this one. It looks brand new, and
Nice,
30,000
nice.
miles. So we've bought it, and they're picking it up tomorrow, which means that I get my Boxster back. So I thought, okay, if I'm not going to be driving the Targa through Christmas through all the snow salt and grit on the roads, I can hack about in the old Boxster for a winter, and it lives a little bit longer.
Nice.
Yeah.
In the C63, on the Grand, I just spent time in the new C63, which of course is a 2-liter 4-cylinder. It also makes like 600 and some horsepower, but you're talking about the real C63 where 63 meant 6.3 or 6.2. Yeah.
Correct. 6.3, and it's a snarling monster. It's iconic.
They really are. Those will go down as one of the great Mercedes-Benz cars.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
why
I'm
they
curious
call it,
to
you
hear
know
what-
what? It's like sorry, go on.
I'm excited to hear what you guys think once they get a chance to really get into it.
Yeah, there'll be some photo shoots of the cars together, I'm sure. So watch this.
I'm counting on it.
Or not.
Can I ask, are those cars relatively affordable these days? Like even a good one, or are they?
£22,000. So what's that?
I mean, come on.
$27,000.
That's civic money. That's that's less than civic money.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
we should all be
it's
driving
a lot
those.
of car for the money.
Really
I can't believe they'll lose any money. We should all.
No, 469 horsepower, right? I think is what
Yeah.
those are. I mean, come on, it's kind of like the German Charger Challenger or something. I feel right. They've gotten kind of to that level, but what a great car those are.
Yeah.
So,
That's me.
yeah. Okay. Well, I wish we were all there doing what you're doing.
Right.
It looks amazing. Sounds amazing, and it's kind of like another pilgrimage, right? Like check this one off the box. Car Week,
It is
right?
indeed.
Goodwood. So.
And the problem is in Germany, there are so many cool museums. So I was with some people this morning and they went, oh, no, Porsche is good, but you want to go to the Mercedes Museum. That's really the one. That's history of cars. Oh, and if you're going to do that, then you need to do this. And they literally gave me 10 different locations. So I'm like, cool, that's 10 weekends sorted right there. So
Right.
I'll be
Or
back.
you're like, I guess I'm here for a
Living the-
week rather than a weekend.
Living
Yeah,
the
I
dream.
did sit here and think, maybe I'd do the Mercedes on Sunday when I promised a family roast. Say one more day. Just one more day. Just one more day.
Right.
It's for the cause, right? Doing it for the
Yeah,
cause,
that's it. I'd love to come home, but work calls.
right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a good trip if it's one of those where you try to figure out how I can just stay.
Debate whether you
right?
go home or not.
right, indefinitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Porsches and old Porsches and stuff, I had a really neat experience. I think you guys saw I was on the First Dibs podcast last Friday. So our friends at Porsche of Colorado Springs,
Yeah.
John and Justin, do a great podcast, called First Dibs. And John, we'll get to this, was up in your neck of the woods, Dan. He was doing Dirtfish. So I sat in, tried to fill his very large shoes, and had a great time talking with Justin. But Dan, in your infinite wisdom, you said, why don't you reach out to Justin first and see if he's got some cars you can drive so you have something to talk about on the show.
You
right?
owe me beers, Barkey.
I know. Well, guys, I was so sad when I woke up and it was like the coldest day. There was like 43 degrees or something, and it was raining. And as I drove closer to Colorado Springs, it got colder, and the rain was almost kind of like borderline slush. But I ended up driving 4 really very different and very cool cars. I posted all this to Instagram, but I'd never driven a Porsche 964 before. And so I got to drive a pretty rare 1990 Carrera 2. I think a lot of those cars were 4s. And specifically, this was
And how was it, Ryan?
Well, I've gotten a lot of grief about this, in my opinion, but I think the word I used was ancient. That said, that's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing. And as I've also said, it's closer to a 356 than it is, say, a 992. And prove me wrong, right? It's just a very different feeling thing than a modern Porsche, but that's why it's wonderful, and that's why I loved it.
Right.
And this wasn't
how much horsepower?
So I think about 250 horsepower, give or take. This one had been hopped up a little hot rodded.
Did you get the back end out?
I did.
Easily, or was it scary? Or
Well
no,
done.
that's the thing. It was totally benign. Yeah,
Okay, that's
you
good.
never felt out of control. It had real primitive ABS, which I never engaged, but it's just a great handling little car. Even in the rain, it never got wild. It was really a benign thing and a hell of a lot of fun to drive. The hinged pedals. It's a 90, but it seems like a much older car. And this was an interesting one because, and I don't think this is a secret, but Porsche of Colorado Springs is a Singer dealership. And as part of that, they actually act as sort of a funnel to find these old 964s and bring them in, and then they send them off to Singer. But this is kind of a rare car, and it's one that I think they might end up just keeping, but it was intended to be chopped up at Singer. And so I don't know, maybe we'll save it from the Singer. Is that a blessing or a curse for 964? If it gets reborn as a Singer, I don't know.
I think it's probably a blessing ultimately. It's a compliment.
I suppose. Yeah. Feel a little newer, maybe not so ancient, but got to drive that. Got to drive. I've driven several 992s, obviously, but I'd never driven a PDK Carrera S, so that was fun. Very similar to what you have, Alan. Total rocket. Also spun the tires on that, but it's got a wet mode, right? And then I'll save. Well, I was going to save this one for last, but the one that really rocked my world was the new Dakar. Right? Or 2-year-old Dakar.
Yes.
But first one I driven, beautiful shade green metallic, had all the, the crap on top. That got all the looks. That thing was a blast. That thing, I just wanted to keep driving. I wanted to just drive to Moab, Utah in it and just never come back. That thing was an absolute, beast, just beautiful car. I love the color. That's exactly the one I would take.
So how was the handling? How did it respond with the tires and the higher center gravity?
Interesting. I've discovered that it hydroplanes pretty easily because it's got these knobby tires, right?
Wow.
And how did you figure that out?
Yeah, it was raining that day, and that I was going to say that's at least a $350,000 car. Right now. I was thinking
Sideways down
Crazy
the
money.
freeway. Yeah.
Crazy money still.
crazy money. Interesting drive because it doesn't drive like a Raptor where it just sort of floats over things. It definitely is a more, I don't know, sporty ride for better or worse. It is, but it also is a little rougher maybe than you'd expect, right? It's not but hell of a thing, guys. Just beautifully built. So solid, so rigid. And I think that's the big thing that jumped out at me. It's one thing if you're on, low profile tires on the street. It's another thing when you're on these big knobby tires, which, I mean, you tell us, Alan, but I think that's going to bring out the imperfections in a car, right? That's going to show you the weaknesses, right? And this thing was
depends on so many factors and how it's set up, but it definitely should be a noisier ride. How was it?
It was, but it was still pretty great. You could drive that thing every day. I mean, if you're going to have one Porsche and you live in a place like Colorado or, Jeff Zwart, this is his daily driver when he's not daily driving a 356 in the snow, right? It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. I didn't get to hustle it too much, but they're so good. I mean, is this a car that interests you all or because it really didn't me? I mean, I like the idea of it and now I'm in love.
I would love to drive
what
one.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
What I'm learning as I'm driving more cars is every car has a place in this. And sometimes you understand why do they do certain things. Like in England, when you're designing cars, steering lock is not a massive challenge for you. But in the US, if you want to sell in the US, everyone does U-turns everywhere. So steering lock is really important. Again, my car coming here to the Autobahn, it came alive. And I don't get to experience that in the UK. Yeah. So now I understand more about my car in this environment. But I think, like you say, when you go into a heavy winter environment or more of an off-road environment, fire roads, I don't know how far you want to go, deserts, then, it might justify more. So it's really it doesn't interest me for that money. There's other things I would buy. Probably start with the letter L, but it would. Yes, that's right. I am a dick. But
Lada.
Lada.
Yes.
Why would you want a
A
Lada?
Lincoln.
I don't know. Our buddy Jorge Fuentes just picked up a Lada. What's the 4-wheel drive one that he's going to have shipped to
Arriva.
Colorado?
Really?
Isn't
Lada
it? Didn't he get a
Oh,
Lada?
yeah, but you know, it's Jorge. So
Yeah, well,
he's, you know, you start any sentence with that, it's like anything is
You never
possible.
know how it's going to end.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
I guess it depends on what environment you live in. And
Yeah.
again, if you're in Colorado, it probably makes sense. So it could be up there. You get more use out of it.
But for half the price, you could have a 911 Safari car, like a Lee Keen or something.
Yeah.
So would that not be a better car and then spend the rest of the money on something else?
There's something
definitely a
about
good
this
alternative.
Dakar. Yeah, but the Porsche car.
Or you
where
have a
it's just-
911 and a Jeep.
There we go.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you do the Jeep wave yet, Alan. Do you have to do it in bed now? There we go. Keep your hands on the steering wheel.
Lindsey, you said too. I mean, this is a car that interests you. I mean, I think for me it would have to be like a third Porsche or something. I mean, I absolutely love it, but I don't know that it would scratch the itch of like the GT4 and the Canyons. People say they're wonderful. I didn't get to do that, but I mean, is this something, if money were no object, you'd buy?
I would love to, you know, like if money's no object, then I think absolutely it would be really fun to buy it and try it for however long it held my interest. Because especially with it being so capable in the weather, like it could be used as a daily in Seattle in the winter. And you can't say that about a lot of fun cars. So yeah, I would totally, you know, and I remember when they came out, it was kind of like a lot of people gave it the side eye. But then hearing about how it actually drives and how capable it is and how confident you can be, and it takes away the preciousness. You can just enjoy being in a Porsche.
Lindsey, would you have it over a vintage Bronco?
Oh, that's a tough question. If money's no object, I'll have both.
Oh, there you go.
Lindsey,
One day we will
hit
do the. You can only have 5 cars in your garage. Which 5 cars are they? And you think the more options you have, you go, oh, it's going to be really easy. But actually, it gets tougher. So
no, I know. I had to put together a 5-car garage list recently, and I could only get it down to 8.
There you go.
Because, like you said,
Pay for the
Alan,
extension on the garage.
right? Well, and the more you drive, you do realize like there's a tool for every job, and there's so many great cars that, you know, this car is amazing in this situation. This car is amazing in this situation. And I think the problem for people like us is that we enjoy driving so much and we want it to be the right thing at the right time. And then you go like, and that's why I need 10 cars.
But you hit on something very key, and that's the not having to worry about driving a Porsche. You don't have to worry about scraping the front end. You don't have to worry about railroad tracks. You don't have to worry, you know, I mean, it's just, and a couple other takeaways for this car for me were that this one had all the kit on top. So it had the shovel, it had the gas can, you know, it had all the stuff. Not one rattle. Now the car was brand new, you know, but not one rattle. The other thing is there's a whistle, a turbo whistle, which I didn't. It was amazing. It was like, it was just, you know, it was just this, and you were constantly trying to get that sound.
Was it a turbo whistle, or was it the whistle of the air going through the crap on the top? Because when you said there's not one rattle, I was thinking probably a whistle, and then you literally said whistle. So
no, I think this was from the blow-off valve or whatever it is. I mean, it had, like, I drove that new, what was that Toyota, that Trail Boss or Trail whatever that thing was that I drove recently. It was kind of like that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is everyone looks at this car. Like if you're a single guy in your middle ages and you want to pick up a single lady in your middle ages, I couldn't believe how many looks from that demographic this thing got. Maybe it was just the gray and the beard. I don't know.
I think that was just get in the car.
People like this thing.
Yeah, Bumble or Hinge. Yeah, just go get. Spend your
So
money.
you need to convert the whistle into a wolf whistle then.
Oh, there you go.
A cougar whistle.
Go down a gear.
Guarantee a 0 success rate if you turn it into a
Lindsey,
wolf
go ahead.
whistle. Just so we're clear.
No, I know. I was joking.
Anyway, hell of a car, and I think we all should buy one. If I had the money, I would. This shade green metallic is just, that was the color too. It's funny because I call it shade green metallic. I don't think there's any metallic in it, but it's a beautiful color.
Funny.
It almost looks like
It's a really
flat
unique
color. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, so if you have that and it's an off-road capable vehicle, then you don't need a Macan, no?
No,
Because you got to
no.
experience a Macan as well.
And that's the next thing. So, we've all heard about the new Macan Electric is what they're calling it. And specifically, I got to drive the Macan 4 Electric. Just posted something to Instagram about 10 minutes ago. Lindsey, you went to the actual launch. I did not. So I got to drive the thing, but that's all I got to do. You got everything else. You got to learn about it. It's a beautiful space, right? I mean, it's a really nice car.
It
and
is.
like light years ahead of the old Macan. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like one of the comments I heard before I went to the launch, and I'm curious to get Alan's thoughts on this because they started with an existing car and like redesigned it. In a way, they retrofitted it to make it an EV rather than designing an EV SUV from the scratch.
I didn't know
Knowing from
that.
the beginning.
Yeah.
So there were some limitations because they started with something that's a
Okay.
gas car and already existed. So I'm curious, Alan, what your thoughts would be. Like, how does that impact the design process?
Yeah,
Starting with something
that's a
already
massive
exists.
difference. Yeah, so as an example, my 992.1 has all the pressings in the panel ready for the point 2 to have all the different EV or hybrid equipment in there. When you look at the car, and I think, Ryan, you picked up on this when you had a look at the car that you drove, there's certain styling cues that are different. So the paint line on the seal is different to try and maintain the proportions of the vehicle. Ride height is subtly different. Weight distribution actually is pretty good. So H point, so the driver's, if you like, sort of hip point is slightly higher, and therefore then that changes vehicle dynamics. So because obviously when you brake, it pitches forward, and obviously when you turn, you have more roll. So then they have to dampen it in different ways to try and manage that pitch and roll, and then that then affects. Like secondary ride, like, how does it sort of sit over harmonic bumps? So yeah, it will make a massive difference. When you start from scratch, you get obviously a much better product, but just switching to EV compared to internal combustion engines, ICE, it will be a different ride, a different experience. How was the noise, Ryan, when you drove it?
It was very quiet. Yeah, I guess some of my
Did you
takeaways
hear
were
other
that.
things around in the vehicle? Like, say, people think they can use the same components, like the accelerator pedal, but actually it has a spring in there, and the way it's constructed is a groove and a pin, and so you don't hear it in an ICE car, but you hear everything in an
interesting.
EV. And
Yeah,
so the NVH,
yeah.
it started to drive other design of other parts, because now you're hearing more different noises that you don't want to hear. So.
Yeah, that's
Interesting.
a good point. I've noticed that in other electric cars. This one, I mean, again, it's brand new, right? I mean,
Yep.
but maybe I picked up on the tires a little bit, and you do hear the wind a little bit, right? As smooth as it is, but this thing was quiet. It was every input, every control was very, very smooth. Alan, I wanted to hit on, you said the styling and how that changes, right? The visual. You have all seen cars where they do this thing where they paint sort of the bottom part of the car black, right? To hide, sort of the mass. And this is definitely that. If you look at this thing, the one I drove was all black, so it kind of hid that. But if you were driving a white one, you would see there's a lot hanging down under there, right?
Yeah.
And, they try to hide it, but it's still there. I don't know what the ground clearance is compared to, say, the old Macan. But I can tell you which one.
I expect the ground clearance will be the same because that's driven by obstacles on the road. So they will have a breakover height between the two wheels between the wheelbase that they'll try and protect for. So everything, so the battery which is sitting underneath, that's pushing everything up, depending on the height of it, probably 120 to 150 mil. Like that's quite a lot of lift.
Yeah,
in a
it
vehicle.
is. Lindsey, what do you think of the interior design? Because I said this when I was on First Dibs. I get in this car and there's interior lighting, sort of like a newer Mercedes-Benz. I'm not a big fan of that. If it were my car, I'd probably turn it off. I got in, it was all pink, and I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. It's fine, whatever, But
Say it's fine
it was
a few more
very
times, and we'll
different
believe you.
interior. Yeah, I think I mentioned too that there was also Jesus Rock on the radio, so I don't know who was in that car before me, but Jesus,
That's quite
Jesus was my co-pilot, I guess, that day.
Jesus take the wheel, literally.
Was it
Yeah.
yeah, was it the Apple Play assistant where you're doing obstacles and you went Jesus and it We'll find Jesus FM for you. So
No, this was actually on the FM radio, which was even more
there you go.
surprising. So someone sought that out, but it's funny.
That's quite an initial UX for you, where they're like, "Welcome."
Yeah, exactly. Well, in speaking of UX and all that, I mean, that's obviously very different. I had spent several days in the old Macan a couple of weeks ago, and that definitely feels like, an older Porsche. This one has that binnacle-less, screen, right? It's a little different. It's very open. What did you think of the interior? I mean, do you think it's a step in the right direction, or is it a little too Mercedes-Benz to you?
You know what's funny is it actually reminded me of that X1 loaner car that I had recently. Like I kept finding stuff that reminded me of the X1. One thing that caught my attention right away was, did yours have the interior, like in between the driver's seats, there's like a very, very thin kind of peninsula that came out from the dash. In the X1, it comes from the back of the seats, but it's this very thin peninsula with an opening in it. And then way down below at the floor are the cup holders. So I'd be curious.
I don't even think
like.
I noticed that one way or the other. Yeah.
It was really, so
You're
it
too
had
busy
this
picking up
super,
cougars.
right? We had different experiences, obviously. Because I wasn't
So
driving
you can hide your
it.
beers, your tall boys, they're down low when you're.
Yeah, it was funny because I was going like, if you're driving, it was far enough down that it seemed like you would have to, have to look, at least initially. So you're taking your eyes off the road, and then you'd almost have to lean over to get them. Which is, or like if you're trying to put it in as you're driving, I could see like spilling it. So it was, that
You
part
never
was
reached
interesting.
over into the passenger. You never reached over into the passenger footwell to save your takeaway before it spills on your carpet.
I mean, I wouldn't say I've never done it, but it's not ideal.
But don't you think that this wasn't a product of good design, Alan? You tell me if I'm wrong, but this is an artifact of there's not a drive line there, so now we have space, so now we're going to do something with that space. It's not like that's the ideal place for your drink, or am I wrong?
Oh, it's like because
agreed.
we can.
Yeah, exactly. But also it gives a feeling of openness as well, and I don't think you can have enough cup holders in a car,
Yeah.
but.
You lived in America
can't.
for too long, Alan.
I need the big gulp. I need the Starbucks iced tea. I need the water to make myself feel better, and all those things. So, and yeah,
And your Stanley Cup, like my daughter. This thing is this.
there you go. Yeah. It's a workout.
Weighs 40 pounds, right?
It does.
I really like the Macan.
Yeah.
In fact, we did test drive one as well.
You did?
I saw one at
Okay.
I saw one at Formula E when I went. And so I went for a test drive at Porsche Centre, West London. Hugo there is a pro racer, actually, I found out. So
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
shout out Hugo.
can we turn this up a week? Then he said, I know just the roads for you. Let's go. So
Nice.
that's the sales guy I want.
That's who you want to do the test drive with.
Exactly. And I loved it. I think the interior is fantastic. I think the car's fantastic. People are very dismissive about EVs, and I think it's a great car. I think it's a great EV. I would definitely have one. Yeah,
And,
they've done a
and
great
Dan,
job.
you've got, I guess, sort of a twin to the Macan, and you've got an SQ5, an Audi.
Yeah,
Would you
well, I used to have
ever-
the Macan, right?
Yeah.
So I
yeah.
had a Macan Sport before the Cayenne, and I loved the Sport edition. It had a few extra things on it than the base, but the SQ5 was quicker and cheaper to. The big thing with the Macans for me is the servicing, because after 3 years, all the PDK needs a change of oil and everything, and you're talking big money to get all that done, especially if you want to keep the warranty. But I was curious because Porsche need this car to work, right? They, they need to go electric. They recognize they need to go electric, and this car needs to keep them going, right? It needs to be able to pay for all those lovely GT cars.
Yeah.
So
their number one seller
does
is the
that do it?
Macan. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, but I think Macan, Panamera, and something else are all down significantly year on year in terms of sales. So, so it needs. So, is this the car that's going to keep them going?
Right. They need the shot in the arm.
It's a damn good effort. Yeah. It's a damn good effort.
But it is
Yeah,
pretty
it was
expensive as
beautiful.
well. For,
It is.
Yeah. How much is it?
I
When
will
you're looking-
say they start at 75 base.
yeah. And
Yeah,
to
what
be
did you-
honest,
75.
Sorry. Yeah. I'll cut that out. Which one did you drive, Alan?
It was just the base model, but to be honest, I would have to put some options in there. So it would end up being another 15, 20,000 on top of what I think is usable and also attractive when I want to come time to resell it.
That's right. I think the move would be the S or even the turbo.
Yeah.
And the one I drove had 407 horsepower, I think, because it was the all-wheel drive. But Lindsey, I didn't know this. You sent over some information. There's a rear-wheel drive Macan, which I don't think has ever been a thing, or am I wrong about that? That's only got 335 horsepower. That's not enough in that thing. The 400, sorry, that sounds wrong, right? But it's a heavy fucking thing. Sorry. It's a heavy car. And
if you want to be,
you got to have a little shove in an electric, right?
Yeah, and if you're in the weather,
I bet the
you want to
range is
know.
good.
Yeah,
I bet on the rear-wheel drive the range is much better.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
So that's why they've done it. They want an example that's got really good range,
and that'll be their least special. But
so obviously, all of the things that I say on the show are all my opinion, nothing to do with the company I work for or have worked for. But a lot of companies, depending on what the volume of the product they sell, that's the one they have the one they sell the largest quantity of, or is their main class as their main spec, is the one they have to crash test, and that's the one that gets rated. So our friends in NorCal that start with T, they did the rear wheel drive to do crash testing, and then bought the four-wheel drive out later, the dual motor out later. So I don't suspect Porsche is playing that game, but like you say, Dan, it's either range or it's passive safety, or there is going to be a business case for doing that, not just to provide another option to customers.
So Dan, as someone in the group who owns the closest thing to a Macan electric, I mean, would you ever trade in your SQ5 on a Macan electric, or say an Audi electric, the Audi version?
Yeah. I think there are other cars that I would go that would be ahead on the list, and I think the new Rivians that are coming would be a more compelling option because they're going to be slightly cheaper. But that said, I do know a lot of people that have put off buying new Macans, waiting for the electric Macan. So I think there is pent-up demand there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, how about those new Rivians, those little ones? What's the one that looks like the Lancia, the Delta Integrale?
R3.
That thing is gorgeous. I love that thing. I would love to own that thing. It's perfect.
Yeah,
I need that in the car, but
let's hope Rivian have the money to get there. They've got to get through R2 first. That's the next model,
right?
But yeah,
and there's a new competitor on the landscape as of today or yesterday, right?
That's right, Scout.
It's Scout. I've just announced their electric cars, and look very, very similar to Rivian. That's all I'll say, but I'm not the only one that observed that.
No,
I think there's some cross-pollination there.
There are quite a few ex-Rivian people there.
Right. Yeah, when I saw it, I went, well, that makes sense given the team crossover.
Yeah, Alan, say that again.
There are a lot of ex-Rivian people.
Okay.
At Scout.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to make sure we all got
people
that. Yes.
Got let go in a badly managed layoff, and they turned up at Scout. So let's see how that goes.
So we wish them all the best, but it should be based on the people who are there. It should be a pretty great thing, huh?
They are great people that went there. They were, great people to work with. Very intelligent people. They'll do a great job there.
Yeah.
So.
What do we know about this new Scout, like powertrain and price and all that?
I think it's too early on price and stuff. Yeah, there's two editions that are two model types that are coming out, right?
Yeah.
One is an SUV and one is a pickup. So the launch was literally 2 days ago, so it's super early. No journalists have driven them yet and all that sort of stuff.
So there is, as far as I know, a lot of VW engineering department support in there, and a lot of the design work and the durability is very VW-esque, so it's going to be a rock. It's going to be a great vehicle. So,
interesting.
Shout out to Klaus, who was working on the design early on, and he left to go to a Chinese manufacturer, but he was the guy behind some of the electric VWs. He went to Scout, and, so he's had an influence there.
Oh,
yeah, when's that new van coming out? I've been hearing about that for 15 years.
Yeah, let's talk about that because it's been launched this week, and
didn't even know that.
A really good Jason Camisa video. I sound like his number one fan, but he's done a Legends video
Yeah.
And in the summary of it is he talks about 3 generations of VW, and each time them nearly going bankrupt, and the US having a big influence. Obviously, it's a massive car market, but each time there's been one iconic car that's come out that's almost saved them. So the first time around, it's obviously the Bug, the Beetle. But I won't.
Oh, hello.
Cut this out. Dan, we lost you. Yep.
I won't spoil the video, but he basically talks about the importance of this new Buzz, the new, and how that needs to save them again. So, have you guys seen it? What do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be a success, but I think it is alienating a lot of the traditional transporter owners because it's quite small. So,
Really?
as an example, a lot of my friends have transporters. They put dirt bikes in them, they put surfboards, they put mountain bikes in them, they put a bed in there, and they sleep with their adrenaline kit and go away for the weekend. You wouldn't get half of that stuff in the Buzz. So,
And are you commenting on the European one or the US one? The reason I say that is that the European one gets a shorter wheelbase. So the US one, we've had to wait for 2 extra years, has a longer wheelbase. So I
I'm
wonder
surprised
if
it's not
some of
also
those-
wider, Dan. Sorry.
Right. More cup holders for Alan, right?
gonna get cozier. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, and that's interesting. So,
Yeah, that is
and it'll be a disappointment if they don't do the. I don't want to call it a long wheelbase because that's an insult to short wheelbases out here. But let's see. I don't know
Yeah.
what the dimensions are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would love to see them do a camper version. Like that kind of solves all my aspirations of getting a camper van that's
That's
not a
right.
Sprinter that's
Oh,
like
yeah.
been used a lot
Yeah, it's
more
way-
than they advertise.
Way cooler than a Sprinter, Dan.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah. So come on, VW, produce a camper van for me.
And if it's
Hey,
new, then
a
you
couple-
don't quite get any more stories of looking at sprinters that may have had a questionable life up to that point.
No more side trips to San Diego to look at beat down Sprinters.
Two
Right.
side
Someone's
trips
lived
to go
in.
look at that
Yeah.
damn van.
Right. Hey, a couple quick things. We got to give a shout out to our friend Jason Meshnick. Jason's a Colorado guy here who reached out to us about a couple things recently. One was to give me shit about my opinion on the 964, of which he owns one. But the other thing, he said, old? Yeah, it's old. Even if it was a very modern 1990 car, it would still feel old because it was 1990, right? I mean, I was in high school then. I don't know about you guys, but that was a long time ago. And then secondly, he followed up with some information on the Myers-Manx that we were talking about that had
great
the...
car.
what was the engine in that? That was a
Carrera GT.
That's right, the Carrera GT engine. So
Yeah, it's a 4-cam engine from the 1950s. So I think we got it slightly wrong. So, Jason, thanks for listening and thanks for sharing those pictures because the car is phenomenal. Lindsay, did you see it when you were at Luft?
No, Matt Farah showed me a picture of it while we were at Luft, but I didn't see it in person.
Yeah.
Close enough.
I bet it drew a crowd. Yeah, it's an awesome,
I'm sure it
awesome
did.
thing. I mean,
I love the story.
I could find a
and
place
how
for
it
that
was
in my
created.
garage. Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
cool. I mean, that's a special thing. But and then circle this back to our friends at Porsche Colorado Springs, specifically our pal John, whose shoes I was trying to fill last week on their podcast. John and his boss Joe and one of their coworkers came up to your neck of the woods, Dan, to give Dirtfish a shot for a day. Can you tell us about that, or is that? I don't want to say too much because I know they want to share about it on their show, but their show will actually be out before this, so you know what, we're good. What?
Okay.
How'd that all come to be, and how was that? I know you guys had a great time.
So I think there are Porsche dealerships and then there's Porsche Colorado Springs. And they love to recognize their employees, which is, it's a great thing to do. Typically, the top performing salesperson and top performing person in the shop gets recognized with a trip to a Porsche experience. So there's a few of these Porsche experiences across the US. And they measure it on obviously cars sold, but also hours put in the workshop. So, these are significant investments in terms of their people, which is great. So they got to choose, and John kindly chose to come and get sideways at Dirtfish.
Nice.
So the three of them turned up on what was a warm but wet day, which is probably the perfect conditions for doing dirtfish. You know, it's not too cold and everything's slippery and you can go sideways and have lots of fun. So I caught up with them in the afternoon, massive smiles on their faces. They'd spent a day in the STIs. We then took them to a private car collection, which is the owner of Dirtfish has got a private car collection up in the Pacific Northwest. Lots of Group B rally cars. So, you know, not only did they have a great experience, they got to geek out. Quite a few of the team joined us, and they are what I would call bobbleheads, and that's a term of endearment, but it basically means they know a lot about rally. So they were able to kind of give the inside scoop. So Josie, Nate, Brenton, all were able to give the inside scoop on the history on the cars as well. So we had a great weekend. Timings, you know, obviously meant that, unfortunately, Lindsey, we didn't get to catch up with you, but next time for sure we will.
I'm excited to hear
But
about it.
so it was a fun weekend.
Yeah.
And then we went. I went to the. There was an F1 viewing party at One Drivers Club. So this is a private members club which they open up for these driving events, and we got to see the Grand Prix from Austin, which was good fun as well.
Nice.
That's a fun place.
Great sweatshirt, by the way, Dan. Yeah.
Good
I know.
vibes. Sending everyone good vibes today.
Yeah. And Ryan, I saw your watch. Yeah. Jay's on his road trip, so we're wishing him safe travels and having fun following along.
Yeah, and
he's having a great time there. He deserves it. It's good follow.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I've decided I really want one of the new SCR watches, and I shared that with you, and I think we all are on the same page. It's
that seemed to be the theme
and
the Sheffield want list.
Is it the blue one we all want?
That's the blue one with more of the titanium finish. It's just a great looking watch.
They did a great
Spike
job.
Feresten
One, I
knows
think we've all got good tastes, but two, I think variety is the spice of life, right? So
that's right. And I think that took inspiration from that French Navy watch, the Marine Nationale watch or whatever it is. Tudor very famously did in the 70s, and I guess they have a version of it now. But that's a good.
What have we all got going on today? I'm still got the rocking the Sheffield 24. That's my road trip watch.
Yeah.
I have my silver dial that I just keep reaching for.
Yes.
I've got the tag on.
But
I am spicing things up a little bit.
Nice,
so maybe something different next week.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend who just got a few watches from Jay, and I said, I sound like Spike, but I was telling her about this watch, and I said, I just keep reaching for it. Like, it's just so pretty, the one with the silver dial, and it just makes me smile, and I love seeing it throughout the day.
Yeah. They're just genuinely awesome watches, especially for the price. But hey, real quick too, you mentioned Joe Brenner, who was with John and their colleague up at Dirtfish, and he very famously is in this this movie that Porsche put out called
Edith.
What is it? Edith. Sorry,
yeah,
I knew it was an old lady's name. And I think it just won an award or is up for something.
It did.
At this European. Did it win? Okay, I wasn't sure when that actually took place.
I've got a news scoop on that as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to say it, so please don't sue me, folks. So it's been the movie of the story has been signed up by Netflix.
Oh, really?
So it will be appearing on Netflix in the near future.
That's amazing.
Sure when, but
that's amazing. Well, we have a couple people listening who can confirm that.
That's right. And my friend Shelby Aiken at Porsche was one of the producers on that movie, and she was at the premiere with us in Monterey.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was the one where
cool.
when they introduced the team, they may have used a different name for her by accident. And,
no kidding.
Yeah, they went down the line and they said, and I can't remember the men's names, I apologize. And then they said, and Ashley. And I'm like, my daughter jumped up and said, her name's Shelby.
A name like Shelby.
Yeah,
right.
How do you forget a name like Shelby?
I know. Well, and she said,
right.
in defense of the person who was doing the introduction, she said, he's met me once. It's not, it wasn't intentional, but it was very funny because my daughter jumped up in the audience and like stage yelled, her name's Shelby. So I had this.
Well, the good thing is, like, there's no such thing as bad publicity. So now she can take a story and spin that. Now more people will know who she is. So
right?
Exactly.
10 seconds just got turned into 60, right?
Right.
Even here.
Well, and the movie is
if you see this movie,
good. It's so good,
it's really
right,
good.
guys?
It's really engaging. It was really
they
engaging,
did such a
and
good
that's
job.
so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So look out for Joe and look out for Ashley. Kidding.
Yeah, exactly. But it was, it's like, even if you don't like cars, it's kind of like the Top Gear thing where
Yeah.
you don't even have to like
It
cars. It's
is.
such an interesting story, and they did a really good job of taking
Yeah.
you along. And, we felt, as much as you can feel without being there, I gave us.
Yeah. Super well done. But that brings me to the question, Dan. So Joe is a shoe. I mean, as is John, and I'm sure what's their colleague's name? Sorry, I don't want to keep calling him their colleague.
Billy?
Billy. Shout out to Billy.
Billy.
I assume that they're all three are shoes to some degree or another. What is it like when you get someone, especially like a Joe who comes in there, who is a racer, who is a track guy, and then you put him on the dirt like that? I mean, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing when you have someone that comes in the door who's very
I
well
think it
versed, but maybe
depends
not
who you-
in rally?
Yeah, I think it depends who you marry them up with. And I'd played some inside baseball and lined them up with the top instructors just as a
Yeah.
favor. So you had someone teaching them each who were very well qualified, have worked with professional racers in all sorts of disciplines. Everyone has bad techniques and habits. So that's kind of one of the first things, spotting them and understanding how you can help them tweak and stuff. So I don't think it matters what level they come in at. There's so many variables that, the instructors can work really well with them. So I'm really keen that hopefully we can get those folks on the podcast and hear their side of what they thought of it.
Let's do it. Make that happen. I think we just lost Lindsey, but I know she also had a hard stop to get to Willow Springs. So it was either this or try to record with her on the road. So have a great weekend at Willow Springs. I wish I was there. I wish I was in Stuttgart. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know what you're doing this weekend, Alan. What have you got going on, Dan?
Some friends of mine have got an open house at their. They've got a small Porsche dealership stroke shop, so they're not an official dealer. But Dominic Dobson, who was a former racer, Stuttgart. I've got an open day on Saturday. So I'm going to go and see those folks, and then obviously there's a Mexican Grand Prix where we need some papaya at the front of the grid, don't we? We need some
We do
justice
need it now.
for
After
Lando.
last weekend, we need an extra boost. So
That was kind of a tough break last weekend, was it not?
yeah, it was, and opportunities are running out. So
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for a good result this weekend.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Well,
So
I've got a slumber party, or my daughter has a slumber. My daughter has a slumber party. It's her birthday party tonight, so I'm sure I'll be getting lots of sleep tonight. But hoping to get the car out and hopefully be a little warmer, and I can actually drive in these Cup 2s this weekend. So that'll be my big goal. Maybe wash the car. You forget, washing the car is fun too, right? Like
It's therapeutic, isn't it?
It is therapeutic, right? Putting on a little music, have a beer. It's a good day
Yeah.
for me. I guess my bar's not too.
I'm gonna bring my car around then, Ryan.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I'll keep car wash open.
when you wash your car, it is an inevitability that your neighbor, at least one, will come up to you and say, is mine next, or something to that effect,
Right.
or
Yeah,
right. I mean, they can't not say that. So, Ellen, did the headlights come on that Jeep behind you? It looks like there's some running lights.
yeah, the running lights are on. I don't know. I'll go play with it. I'll flick some switches in a minute and see what I can get going on.
You got to get an
Can't believe
Instagram
that.
reel or two out of that room
Yeah.
there, that hotel room.
Could you have not complained at reception and said you've given me a Jeep bed?
Don't you know who I am?
I'm going to go knock on next door to see if the tailgate's in there. See if we can get a party in there. So,
Yeah.
be smart. Use half the car each
Right?
side
That's
of the
funny.
room, so-
That's funny. Well, it's good to see you both. Great conversation. I'm going to edit this out because that sounded really, really clunky. Let's do a better ending than that, huh?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. Great conversation, guys. Until next week, I am Ryan in Denver.
I'm Alan in Stuttgart. Had to think for a minute.
In a Jeep bed, and I'm Dan in Seattle.
And Lindsay's on her way to Willow Springs, so I hope she has a good weekend, too.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. Until next time, we are The Road Show.